This original WSRE presentation is made possible by viewers like you. Thank you.
Finding a peaceful means to a healthy mind with Grammy-nominated psychologist Dr. Michael DeMaria on this edition of Conversations. Dr. Michael DeMaria has been practicing integrative psychology for over 3 decades and playing music since he was a child. He believes merging the two is a prescription for a healthy body and mind. His work centers around a holistic approach to mental well-being. As an expert in meditation, he teaches students how to heal and find peace through his guided meditations. His musical talent is more than a hobby. He has 4 Grammy nominations and has spent his fair share of time at the top of the New Age music charts. His recordings are regularly heard on such national media outlets as Sirius XM satellite radio. In addition to psychology and music, DeMaria is a respected speaker and author. He has written 4 books. His latest, entitled Peace Within: Clear Your Mind, Open Your Heart, Embrace Your Soul, and Heal Your Life. We're pleased to have Dr. Michael DeMaria back on Conversations. Thank you for joining us.
Well, it's always great to be with you, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
Hey, our pleasure. Brand new book out, Peace Within. What is it? Tell me about it.
Well, this is kind of the distillation of my last 30 years of work as an integrative psychologist and a mindfulness meditation teacher. So I'm really excited about it, Jeff. It's been, again, distilling inside of me for 30 years, but explicitly been writing it for the last 3-4 years. And I'm really excited to share it with people.
When you say integrative psychology, what does that mean?
So integrative psychology, Jeff, means that it's integration of mind, body, heart, and soul. So we hear a lot about mind-body medicine, and that's kind of a buzzword. And some people even talk about mind, body, spirit. But in particular, my approach to integrative wellness is that we have to take care of our entire being. And the big missing piece in our culture, to me, is the heart. So being able to integrate mind, body, spirit, and the heart dimension. You know, this is a real big piece of the Peace Within process, is that in our culture we tend to ignore or not really deal with the difficult terrain of our emotional lives. And that usually is what's tripping people up the most. Right. You know, in my 30 years as a psychologist, dealing with difficult emotions for people is what really brings them in.
Right. You talk about wellness, and that word is used an awful lot in medicine today, just as far as our physical wellness, in other words, to exercise and eat right and things of that nature. Talk about mental wellness. What should we do to prepare ourselves to be able to deal with perhaps the unexpected?
Beautiful question, Jeff. So wellness, in particular mental wellness, is really being able to begin to train our minds, which is what meditation, mindfulness is all about. One of the huge parts of the Peace Within process is stepping back from our thoughts and realizing we're not our thoughts, which is kind of almost a revelation to most people who come to see me. In our culture, we tend to be so obsessed with our thoughts, we think we are our thoughts. So wellness in the sphere of the mind is actually, well, I'll share a simple mantra. I'm not my thoughts are not reality. You say that with me?
I'm not my thoughts. My thoughts are not reality.
That is a huge beginning to mental wellness.
Okay.
Because most of the time, 80-90% of the time, we're in the past, regretting the past usually,
right,
or obsessing about it,
right,
or worrying about the future and being anxious about the future. So what happens is thoughts are taking us into the past and future instead of being here now. So part of mental wellness is not allowing our thoughts to take us all over the place. When I usually first teach people meditation and have them try to just sit quietly and step back from their thoughts, they'll say, you know, I feel like I'm locked in a phone booth with a crazy person. And I go like, well, you're just realizing that's actually always going on, but you haven't trained your mind to quiet. So mental wellness is actually helping us step back from our thoughts and find peace within the mind. In fact, that's one of the names of the chapters, is peace within the mind.
You talk about meditation and being alone with your thoughts, and we kind of laughed about that, but I mean, that's crossed my mind. Yeah, I'm not sure I want to be alone with my thoughts.
Right. Well,
so how do you overcome that?
Well, it's practice, it takes time, and part of what I try to do, and this is where my life as a musician has come in really handy. It's hard for people to practice silent meditation, and that's primarily what most people are receiving out there in the world today. So sound-based meditation, when I can give people healing meditation music, that's quieting the mind, but it gives the mind something to focus on besides the thoughts. So I get to use sound-based meditations to help people quiet their mind in a way that's less threatening. In fact, that's one of the reasons I love using music in meditation. My 7x7 meditation challenge on YouTube is a sound-based meditation. I'm guiding the person, having some music in the background, and both of those things help the person release their thoughts without being overwhelmed by them.
Tell me more about the 7x7 on YouTube.
Well, it's become a real, favorite for a lot of people. I get messages from all over the world. I've had over, 80,000 views in 170 countries. And so basically it's 7 minutes a day for 7 days. I challenge people to say, okay, if you really want to give meditation a try, here's a nice, easy way. I mean, who can't put aside 7 minutes? Right? And this research shows that at least 7 minutes is what we want to begin to achieve some level of quieting the mind. It's like the minimal amount. So if I can get people to tune in to my YouTube channel and start with intro, and for the next 7 days, just listen for 7 minutes, I guide you through a nice, relaxing meditation. I find people will come back over and over again. I have people say they listen to it every day, and they'll just keep redoing it. And any day or night, fully free, people can tune and check that out. So it's a nice taste of what meditation can do. And I've had people send me emails, Jeff, saying, I was in tears. I didn't realize how stressed I was until I could feel my body relax just listening to your voice, listening to the music, and doing this little simple guided meditation practice.
Do you think we're more stressed today because of all the noise, all the electronic noise, television, internet, et cetera, than say we were 50 years ago?
Oh, absolutely. We receive more information in one newspaper than many of our ancestors would experience in a lifetime, 100, 200 years ago. Mm-hmm. So we're all suffering from information overload, future shock, and what I call data smog. This information revolution, you can get anything, but it's almost like too much.
Right.
So what I really try to do is help people spend a little time digitally detoxing, stepping away, turning the devices off. Also, there's actually a physiological effect. So all these devices actually build up what's called a positive charge in the body, which kicks in the sympathetic nervous system, which is our it's the stress part of us. It's the accelerator of the nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system, and that creates cortisol and adrenaline output and stress hormones. So what happens is when we put down the devices, in fact, I have a whole section here called grounding or earthing, spending time bare feet on the ground or lying on the grass, going to the beach and going in the water. That actually, when you have the physical body against salt water, the earth, it actually takes out that positive charge and creates a negative charge in the body electromagnetically, which actually kicks in the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and relax part of us. So that's the break. So a lot of meditation practices are trying to take the accelerator off the nervous system and apply a bit of the brake in the nervous system. So we do this by slowing the thoughts down, bringing yourself into the body, feeling the points of contact between your body and the chair right now. Mm-hmm. Also being in nature, detaching from digital devices, trying to reduce input and stimulation.
They say that stress can cause a great deal of physical problems. Why is that?
Same thing, that stress is putting on the accelerator on the nervous system. So we've actually, in our culture, created a most lethal hour of the week. More people have heart attacks at 8 in the morning on Mondays than at any other time.
Really?
No other culture has created this situation. And so we literally have times of the week that are so stressful that the cortisol, adrenaline, the hyper-stimulated nervous system that's never getting a rest basically is increasing blood pressure, increasing heart rate, and sets up situations for heart attacks, chronic illness, digestive disorders, not to mention all the mental struggles of depression, anxiety, and this becomes a real problem. And so how do we detach? How do we step back from that stress? How do we release the cortisol and adrenaline in a way that helps us find some peace within?
Right, right. Do you recommend meditation for everyone?
Meditation and mindfulness will improve everything you do. So yes, if I can get people to meditate or begin to practice mindfulness, which is a form of meditation, I find that they immediately find the benefits. And research is really showing this. Meditation, mindfulness, yoga are shown to be extraordinary benefits to people across the different dimensions of your health, your emotional, your physical, and your mental health. So we know this in the research, but there's so much misunderstanding about what meditation is.
Right, right.
One of the classic ones that I get all the time
Right.
is like, I can't stop my thoughts, or meditation is stopping your thoughts. That just stresses me out. Meditation is not trying to stop your thoughts. You couldn't stop your thoughts if you wanted to. It's stepping back from your thoughts. So in meditation practice, a simple one I have in here is called Boats on the River, where whatever thought comes up in your mind, you just notice it, you label it, and you let it float down the river of your stream of consciousness. So trying to stop a thought is like trying to keep a boat from going down the river. It's not going to work. It's going to stress you out more.
Right.
If I say, Jeff, don't think of an orange, no matter what, don't think of an orange, you're going to think of an orange.
Right, right.
So meditation is not stopping thoughts. It's stepping back from thoughts so they naturally quiet down. And we could even do an example of that. But that's a huge misunderstanding people have about meditation that I love correcting.
You said mindfulness is a form of meditation. So what's
Correct.
sort of the difference?
Yes, it's a great question, and I love teaching this because there's a tremendous amount of confusion out there. So meditation, there's two main forms of meditation: concentration and mindfulness. Most people are familiar, and most people are teaching concentration meditations out there. Transcendental meditation, a lot of other kinds of meditation. People talk about meditating on a mantra, looking at a candle, watching your breath. This is focusing your concentration on one object of attention. This is concentration meditation. It's one aspect of meditation that's very helpful. It trains the mind to quiet, and there's a lot of benefits from this. Mindfulness, most simply, is present moment, non-judgmental awareness of simply what is. The difference with mindfulness is I'm not concentrating on one thing. Like, we can have a mindful conversation. I can mindfully pick up this glass and mindfully take a sip. And I really feel the water going in my mouth. I'm noticing the red inside the cup and the black of the cup. I feel the coldness of the cup. I feel how, wow, that's really nice. I would like this for my coffee cup at home. I feel the weight of it, and then I put it down, and I feel how my arm is moving. So I've just done a mindfulness meditation of sipping water from this cup. So you can practice mindful cooking. I have this that's another thing I have on YouTube, is Mindful Moment with Michael.
Right.
So mindful cooking, you can take a mindful bike ride, you can do a mindful run, you can do a mindful shower. So the beautiful thing about mindfulness is it's a much wider, more open awareness practice, as opposed to just concentration practice, which most people think meditation is. And that's simply one form of meditation, which is concentration meditation. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And you mentioned your mindful moment. One of the ones that intrigued me was mindful conversation.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
And I thought you brought up a very good point, that so often we may be carrying on a conversation with someone, but we're thinking of something else.
Exactly. Well, and that's one of the reasons I love to come here, is you practice mindful conversation.
Well, thank you.
I mean that. And in that little piece of mindful conversation, mindful moment with Michael, is deep listening. right? To really hear the other person, to really be present to what they're saying, to really feel their presence. And this is something we're missing. I mean, people pay me a lot of money to come to my office to do counseling or therapy or integrative wellness with me because I'm 100% focused on them. And we don't get that in our culture where I'm non-judgmentally, totally present, listening to them. And this is something we need to be practicing in all our relationships. You know, I always like to say everybody needs a good listening to.
Sure.
And there's sometimes I have people who will come to tears simply saying, you know, I've never truly felt heard before. Thank you for hearing me. Thank you for seeing me. You know, and this is something we can do for each other in this culture, is to really be heard and really be seen.
Why do you think we don't like to listen as a whole, as a group? Why is that?
I don't know if it's that we don't like to or we have lost the art of being able to. And to me, it comes again into this busy brain that most people are 2 steps ahead or 2 steps behind. We're in the past and the future. You know, to really listen means you have to empty yourself. It's a very receptive activity, as you know. And so you have to allow yourself to be touched by, you know, the other person's presence and words. And that usually brings up emotion and feeling. Oh, God forbid I'm going to have a feeling.
Right.
You know, we live in a pretty feeling avoidant culture.
Right.
You know, we are pretty much head people in our culture. And there's a real problem with that because we've kind of, from, you know, my studies with indigenous teachers and Native American in particular, you know, they would say one of the problems with Western culture is you guys live from here, we live from here. And I actually, one of the practices I teach is listening with the ears of the heart. It naturally slows us down. It really puts us in tension with the here and now. So I think the reason we don't is we've lost the capacity to be present. Most people are lost in thought. They genuinely are lost in thought. They're not here now. And the other is that people are feeling avoidant, and it's scary to open up, to really be present to the other person means I've got to be present to myself and my own feelings. And that can be scary. The beautiful thing is once you go through that, life becomes rich. You know, it becomes much richer and more vibrant and meaningful.
Did I read somewhere where you said our society is kind of an egocentric society versus perhaps some others that are maybe more soulful or from the heart?
Soul-centric.
Soul-centric.
Yes, exactly. Oh, it's a growing term that talking about egocentric cultures versus soul-centric cultures. And yes, and I talk about that in the book. I have a chapter on peace within the self and then peace within the soul. And I talk about the difference between the ego, self, and the soul. So the ego is not a bad guy. He's just a social guy. Mm-hmm. We need to develop an ego, and ego is our social self. And we learn a language, we learn how to interact in the world, we learn what our culture and family demands of us. The ego's there to help us create acceptance and approval. But the soul is something quite different. The soul is a child of nature. If we think of the ego as a child of society that we kind of develop over time, the soul is a child of nature. We're born with that. Before we know our name, right, before we maneuver through culture, you look at an infant or child, pure presence, pure soul, no ego. They can't tell you their name or anything else, but would we say they don't exist? No, we'd say actually they're most themselves. You look at the eyes of that infant, and you know, even really hardcore adults will just like, ooh, doo, 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 yeah. You know, they're just touched by that presence. Yeah. So part of what I try to tell people is that, you know, getting in touch with the soul is, and most soul-centric cultures talk about this, is that the heart is the doorway to the soul. In fact, the Native Americans have a beautiful saying, don't trust anybody until their heart's been broken, because that's the origin of compassion. And the person will be too lost in their head and egotistical. You know, teenagers can sometimes be that way sometimes. Right. Part of growing up and becoming wise and seasoned is that we go through heartache. Right. But if we can move through that, we also open to this place of compassion for each other. And I think that also cultivates this deep listening we're talking about.
Which brings me to the next question. It does seem like that our society, in many ways right now, and particularly if you look at it from a political standpoint, it seems like there seems to me like there's an awful lot of anger. And sometimes I wonder why that is. And I know there are political disagreements, don't get me wrong about that, but you know, we're probably better off in reality than we've ever been.
Amen. Absolutely.
You know, and it makes me wonder, why are people so angry?
Yeah, it's a great question. I have my opinions on it. You know, anger is about a magical attempt to change the world. You know, it really is. And usually we're externalizing blame. And even in the research, we talk about externalizing blame, or that anger is discharging emotional pain that we're not able to integrate or manage. So what's really happening whenever anger is a third order emotion, it's a reaction to fear and hurt. So I tell people this, if you can see, when you see somebody who's really angry, imagine them as being a scared, hurt child. And what they're defending against is a vulnerability they haven't learned how to accommodate within themselves. So it's not a sign of power. It's a sign of fear and hurt. Now that means, though, if we could get that person to move from anger to talk about what they're really scared about, you know, we'd start having a real national conversation.
Right.
But that's too scary. And again, in an egocentric culture, particularly our masculine-dominated culture, we have a taboo of vulnerability, a taboo of tenderness. So people end up staying in anger. A lot of men, I hate to say it, are taught to have one feeling, and that's anger.
Right.
So when they're scared, they show anger. When they're hurt, they show anger. When they're envious, they show anger. It's not a very well differentiated emotional palette to draw from. So unfortunately, that sells, though.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, I think that's, most people can see that as we've gotten narrowed, where people are, or pundits are talking just to their side. And in anger, the one positive thing about anger is really highly motivating.
Right.
You know, you want to, just like the team who's going to go in, or the war, or the game that you're going to win. But there can't be a win-win with anger. There can't be wise, thoughtful, creative dialogue that reaches consensus with anger. It polarizes. So it may motivate and sell books or advertising on commercial radio or TV, but it's not what our culture and our society needs right now, which is healing. And anger never heals anything.
Interesting. Tell me some more about the book. Clear your mind, open your heart, embrace your soul, and heal your life.
Not ambitious at all.
Not ambitious at all.
You know,
when you talk about healing your life, what do you mean?
So heal comes from the same word as whole. And emotional healing, I tell people that it's hard when people are in emotional pain because we don't see the wound.
Right.
And this is something that's really hard for people who are hurting a lot emotionally, is that, you know, if somebody has a gaping wound, or they've got a cast on, or they've got a prosthetic leg, I mean, we immediately feel some compassion.
Right.
But we have a lot of people walking wounded in the world emotionally, in huge pain, like feeling an emotional wounds people talk about to me, like, I feel like I have this huge gaping wound in my heart, or, you know, they've got like a hole in my heart. Wholeness, when we feel a sense of emotional pain, the heart knows how to heal itself, just like the body knows how to heal itself if it's given time and attention and space. This book is all about what I call, comes from an innate wisdom understanding, meaning that we all have what we need to heal ourselves. That I really try to encourage people find their own healing potential within themselves. That I don't heal anybody, but I can create the conditions and help you practice these practices for you to find your own inner healing, health, and wholeness. So these words are connected: healing, health, and wholeness. So the idea is people experience healing emotional wounds, mental anguish, by these practices that help them quiet the mind, open the heart, and embrace the soul. And this combination is what brings a sense of healing. Most people are re-injuring themselves emotionally and mentally through their thoughts and being lost in thought. It's estimated we have anywhere from 30 to 60,000 thoughts a day, and 90% of them the same you had yesterday. And a lot of these are conditioned thoughts that are a lot of negative self-talk that can be self-injurious. Opening the heart. People tend to, when they've been hurt, close the heart. but this keeps people from healing and feeling connected. When the heart is closed, we feel disconnected from others. So if I can get people to quiet the mind and open the heart, then this connection to the soul, which to me is that part of them that is so natural and feels connected to other people and nature and, for lack of a better word, some kind of larger, higher spiritual reality, they experience healing. So it's like being a gardener, and just cultivating, helping people learn to cultivate their heart and their soul, and then healing happens.
Absolutely fascinating. What can you do if you see a friend or a colleague or someone like that you feel, and I'm getting a little short on time here, that you feel they're struggling or have a problem? How can you, in a subtle way, help or push them in the right direction?
First, listen, like we were saying. Just, gosh, seems like you're hurting or struggling. Can you tell me about that? Trying to encourage them to talk. The other thing is, you can always suggest a book like this, but if it seems like even more, to help them know that there are resources out there for them, and for them to seek professional help, possibly. But first, try to get them to open up and share their pain. We know over and over again, the talking cure, or the journaling I call the writing cure in the book, heals people too. By just having a chance to speak the unspeakable, say the unsayable, healing begins to happen.
Right. I think you're so right about that. Just people want to be listened to.
They need to be listened to.
Need to be listened to. Not just want, but they need. That's an innate something
human
we
need.
have.
Yes.
Human need that we have.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. In about 1 minute, what do you think's changed the most over your career as far as psychology is concerned?
Me personally, or the profession itself?
Both.
The recognition that you can't fix thoughts with other thoughts. That if we don't include the affective, emotional dimension, no real change happens. We know people who get in touch with their feelings, who are able to express their feelings in a healthy way, begin to heal. That we can't selectively numb ourselves, we can't get rid of the pain, and then we end up losing the joy. So the idea of really, I think, honoring the full emotional palette of our human experience, and knowing that we have to really honor the entire human experience, which can be messy, but that's part of being who we really are. I think of it being like an old growth forest. Some people want to turn themselves into machines and appliances that run like this, but that takes the humanity out. Right. So realizing we're more like nature than a machine or an appliance or a computer.
What a fascinating conversation. I always learn something. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, Jeff. Always a pleasure.
Dr. Michael DeMaria, the name of his book, Peace Within, Clear Your Mind, Open Your Heart, Embrace Your Soul, and Heal Your Life. By the way, you can keep up with Dr. DeMaria, as well as find out about some of his mindful moments, and you can see some of his meditation videos at michaeldemaria.com. You can see our conversations, and hopefully they're somewhat peaceful, online at wsre.org/conversations. We're also on Facebook and YouTube. I'm Jeff Weeks. Thank you so very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the broadcast. Take wonderful care of yourself. We'll see you soon.
Support for this program is provided in part by these corporate sponsors. And by viewers like you.